A 5th win in a row for Red Bull's Max Verstappen. He extends his lead at the top of the championship, but these are my driver ratings for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Let's dive into them. We'll kick things off with the race winner and sprint winner and pole position double winner of Max Verstappen. A rating of 5 for the Dutchman. Just a brilliant weekend. He took everything that was available, all the points, all the top positions, simply unstoppable. Next is McLaren's Lando Norris, who picked up a P4 in the end after all the track limits penalties. He gets a rating of 5. He was outstanding in the upgraded McLaren, a much enjoyed return to the front for Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc's next. He gets a 4.5, probably his strongest performance of the season so far. Yes, he had those 2 pole positions in Baku, but he was never really likely to challenge the Red Bulls that day. Almost put in something of a challenge, but the Red Bull is just too strong. But P2 for Charles, very good performance. Carlos Sainz gets a 4. Yes, he did pick up some time penalties, but I thought his pace was very good. He looked like he was maybe the quicker Ferrari driver early on, but the decision to pit both cars under the virtual safety car left him a little bit adrift of Leclerc. He did a good fight with Sergio Perez to try and hang on to P3, but in the end he lost even P4 thanks to the penalties. Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull is next. He gets a 3.5. He should really have been on the front row and in a position to challenge Verstappen all weekend. Not that I think he'd have been able to beat the Dutchman, but 15th in qualifying for all those track limits in qualifying, but a decent recovery onto the podium nonetheless. Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin gets a 3. It wasn't quite the spectacular drive we come to expect this season from Fernando, but solid nonetheless. His team lobbied for the review of the positions at the end of the race and gained him to P5. Pierre Gasly gets a 2.5 at Alpine. Started 9th, finished 9th, and he beat Esteban Ocon for the first time in several races. Good job, Pierre. Lance Stroll gets a 2.5. Obviously, he was outperformed by Fernando Alonso in the race, but he beat Alonso in the sprint and qualified around him, which shows to me he at least got as much out of the car as there was on offer. Nico Hülkenberg gets a 2.5. This is mostly for his Saturday performance, because not only did he qualify 4th for the sprint, at one point he was 2nd, and he went to slicks and still finished in 6th. Alex Albon gets a 2.5 as well. He was undone by some time penalties, but again showed that he's extracting the most from the Williams car. Lewis Hamilton gets a 2, a poor performance all round this weekend really from Lewis's high standards. Not the weekend he or Mercedes would have been looking for. Esteban Ocon gets a 2 as well. He racked up time penalties like they were going out of fashion. Kevin Magnussen gets a 2, a difficult weekend for Haas, but the speed was definitely there. He just couldn't put it all together, unfortunately. Logan Sargent gets a 2, probably his strongest weekend of the season so far, but again, time penalties undid his good work. George Russell gets a 1.5. Not even his strong sprint performance on the slicks could save his weekend. He did snatch a point, almost snatched 2 in the sprint over Ocon, but in qualifying his race weekend was completely undone by not getting into Q3, and then he didn't have the pace to come through. Oscar Piastri gets a 1.5 as well. Not quite the weekend he would have hoped for, but he didn't have the upgrades and he had damage to his front wing, which meant he had to box during the race and left him way down the order. Zhou Guanyu gets a 1.5. It was a difficult weekend all round for Alfa Romeo and he still managed to beat Bottas, so I suppose that's something. Yuki Tsunoda gets a 1.5. He ended up finishing last after all the time penalties were dished out, and his teammate Nick De Vries finished ahead of Tsunoda for what must be only the first or second time this season, but he's still under pressure. And rounding things off is Valtteri Bottas. It was just a messy weekend for the Finn all round. He started on mediums when it was raining in the sprint, and then I don't remember seeing him much in the Grand Prix. So they're my driver ratings. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Here's how the average table looks. The top half looks like this, with Charles Leclerc moving into 10th position and Lando Norris also shooting up the order. And in the bottom half, Nick De Vries is still bottom and Oscar Piastri is moving up the order as well. Of course, you can let me know what you thought of the Grand Prix in Austria, what can be done about track limits. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it if you really enjoyed it, subscribe for more Grand Prix content, and thanks very much for watching.